Wardenclyffe Tower. You walk a quiet shore and see a lattice of timber and metal rising like a skeleton against the sky. When it stood finished, it was a tall tower, with a dome set on a complex of underground rods and coils. The inventor wanted to light cities and send power through the air without wires. He built machines that made high-frequency currents. He thought the Earth itself could carry those currents and that homes could pick them up with simple receivers. Early demos made lamps glow with no visible wire. Crowds watched and reporters scribbled notes. That small proof seemed like magic, but scaling that magic was another matter. The dream required vast investment to build transmitters and compatible receivers across continents. The man who first backed the project withdrew when the inventor shifted from wireless messages to free global power. Money dried up, patents lapsed, and income vanished. Banks tightened credit after a financial panic. Engineers later pointed to real technical hurdles. Standing wave schemes need careful tuning and huge infrastructure. They also need a clear business model. Who would pay for free electricity? Competing advances in alternating current and practical power grids were cheaper and easier to sell. Conspiracy stories say powerful interests refused the change. The clearer explanation is a mix of timing, technical limits, and finance. Still, the image of that tower remains. What if the hill where it stood was more than a failed experiment? That tower stood as a promise, and then as a warning. Investors had gathered, and bankers had counted the cost. A famous financier initially put up money to test wireless messaging, but balked when the inventor doubled down on free global power. Without steady backing, the site slowed. Patent income dried up as other inventions entered the public domain. Financial panics tightened credit, and loans could not be renewed. The tower fell into disrepair and was torn down to pay debts. Engineers at the time raised real doubts about efficiency and safety. Creating a global standing wave in the Earth would need massive power and precise control. Early experiments lit lamps across a room, not across continents. Modern critics point out that a system that promises free energy faces a harder problem than physics. It also faces questions about who pays to build and maintain it. That conflict between grand idea and boring finance is often the quiet end of many bold projects. Still, the story did not die with the wood and metal. The inventor left a trail of paper sketches and audacious demonstrations that later researchers study. Small-scale wireless power is now common in phone chargers and electric toothbrushes. Scientists still explore long-range power ideas, though, with more caution and better math. The myth world filled in the gaps. Some told stories of secret buyouts and deliberate erasure. Those stories are tempting because they make a single villain responsible. The clearer picture is messier. Great inventions fail when timing is wrong, when money runs out, and when practical details overwhelm romance. So, when you stand at a beach and see only a foundation where genius once aimed at the sky, ask yourself this. Was the tower a lost miracle or a useful lesson? Which part matters more, the idea or the moment when the world was ready to accept it? Stanley Meyer Water Fuel Cell. The room goes quiet when a man lifts a glass box and says his car now runs on water. He drives a dune buggy into a demonstration hall, and the engine purrs, while a tank of ordinary water sits on the passenger seat. Cameras roll, and for a moment, the promise feels real. The claim was simple. Split water into hydrogen and oxygen with almost no extra energy and use the gas to run a car. He patented a system in 1994, and a famous documentary aired in 1995, showing the dune buggy cruising on water and sparking huge public excitement. Soon, the questions followed. Scientists pointed out that splitting water takes at least as much energy as you get back when you recombine it. The core law is straightforward. You cannot extract more usable energy than you put in. Independent experts who inspected the device said it behaved like ordinary electrolysis, not a secret bypass of physics. Investors who bought dealership rights sued in 1996, calling the demonstrations misleading. A court found that the claims were not proved and ordered repayment of $25,000. Then the human part returns. The inventor died suddenly in 1998 after a restaurant meal. His last words to a family member were dramatic and became the seed for whispered theories of foul play. The official cause was an aneurysm. Conspiracy stories like neat endings. The clearer picture is messier. Clever demonstrations can hide simple tricks. Legal fights and failed validation help fuel rumors of suppression. The real lesson is about proof and scale. A show that thrills a crowd is not the same as a replicable, certified technology that can be licensed and mass-produced. So did someone erase a genuine breakthrough, or did the breakthrough never withstand scrutiny? The court looked under the hood and did not find a miracle. Independent experts tested the device and said it behaved like normal electrolysis. The machine separated water into hydrogen and oxygen, but it needed energy to do that. The energy put in was at least as large as the energy you could later get back. The legal ruling called the claims unproven and ordered repayment of $25,000. That ruling did not make the whispers stop. Then the inventor died after a meal, and the rumor mill went to work. A family member reported dramatic last words, and that fueled talk of murder and of secret takedowns. The official cause was a cerebral aneurysm. No credible evidence ever linked his death to a conspiracy. Even so, the story stuck, because people want a villain when a bright idea fails. Here is the plain technical point. If you say a car runs on water, you must show the math and the repeatable tests. Spectacular demonstrations can fool a crowd. Short runs under perfect conditions can look convincing. But engineers and regulators need reproducible results under real-world conditions. That gap between a crowd-pleasing demo and a certified technology is where many big claims die. So what should you believe? Do you trust courts and labs that require proof? Or do you trust the thrilling demo and the idea of a hidden breakthrough? Both answers tell you something about how progress really works. Is the real danger that someone erased a solution? Or is the real danger that we let wishful thinking replace careful testing? Thomas Ogle's 100 miles per gallon engine. The crowd watched a battered Ford Galaxy roll down a highway and then checked the tank. The driver had driven 200 miles on 2 gallons of gasoline, and the numbers on the dial barely moved. Reporters scribbled and radio crews filed tapes. The claim sounded ridiculous and brilliant at the same time. His system did something simple in principle and clever in practice. Instead of a normal carburetor, the fuel sat in a heated, pressurized chamber and turned into vapor. That vapor went into the engine, ready to burn more completely. Less liquid fuel meant a leaner mixture and theoretically more miles for each gallon. Under calm, steady driving, the results could be dramatic. Engineers who watched said the test conditions mattered a lot. Short runs on even roads with steady speeds show big gains. Mixed traffic and hills tell a different story. Some lab checks found no obvious trickery and confirmed high mileage in those conditions. Other experts warned about long-term effects. Very lean combustion can raise temperatures and lead to faster engine wear. Replicating results consistently across many cars and driving styles proved harder than the demo made it look. Then the human noise began. Stories circulated about corporate offers to buy and shelve the technology. Some said a major oil company tried to buy it. He reportedly refused. The inventor later died young in 1979. Official reports listed substance issues and an overdose. The gaps in documentation and the disappearance of media pieces fed conspiracy talk. So what do you feel? Is this a case of a brilliant idea killed by greed? Or is it a clever demo that could not scale without hidden costs? The long view complicates the miracle. Tests that looked convincing on a smooth highway often fell apart under everyday driving. Short, steady runs with careful speed control could show 100 miles per gallon. Stop and start city driving erased most of those gains. Mechanics warned that burning very lean mixtures raises cylinder temperatures and can speed wear on valves and pistons. Fleet owners asked about durability and emissions, and those questions matter when you try to sell millions of cars. Then there was the paperwork problem. To bring a new fuel system to market, you must prove it works for thousands of miles and meet safety and emissions rules. That requires money, factories, and certified testing. A single garage prototype cannot scale without partners willing to underwrite those costs. Offers to buy and shelve the idea appear in the record or in rumor. A representative from a large oil company supposedly offered $25 million. He is said to have refused. Whether offers were formal or informal does not change the bigger issue. If you refuse industry money, you still need production money and distribution muscle. Media coverage that once boosted the story later faded. An article in a national magazine circulated, and then the issue became hard to find. Missing pages and sparse archives fed suspicion that someone wanted the story gone. Combine that with a messy personal life and an early death, and the ingredients are perfect for conspiracy. Official reports said substance-related issues caused his death in 1979. But when records are thin, people fill the gaps with villains. So what should you take away? The core technology offered a clever trick that worked under narrow conditions. Scaling and certification exposed serious limits. The gaps in documentation and the vanishing media make it easy to believe a cover-up, which feels worse to you, that a real solution was silenced, or that a dramatic idea never survived honest testing. Starlight. A hairdresser in a small workshop mixes a slippery orange paste, then spreads it over an eggshell and points a blowtorch straight at it. For 5 minutes, the flame roars, and the shell stays cool and the yolk remains raw. The demonstration made engineers stop and rewrite their mental rulebook. The material chars and puffs into a light foaming layer that blocks heat instead of feeding it. That foam is the secret of its power. Under intense heat, it forms a low-density carbon shield that slows heat transfer dramatically. Tests suggested it could survive extreme temperatures that would melt ordinary plastics and ceramics. The formula was unusual because most high-temperature materials are mostly ceramic. This one seemed largely organic, with a careful mix of additives and small ceramic bits. The inventor guarded the mix fiercely. Companies asked to analyze samples and were allowed short tests, but not full access to the recipe. A national lab tested small pieces under simulated blast conditions and reported striking results. Still, the developer refused buyout offers that would have put the recipe inside corporate vaults and production lines. He worried about theft and about losing control over a creation he believed could help people. That secrecy is the heart of the mystery. Open science asks for reproducible methods and shared samples. Industry asks for documentation to scale and certify. Keeping the secret kept it safe, and also kept it out of production. After a lifetime of guarding the formula, the creator took the method to his grave. Years later, a company obtained rights and claimed progress in replication. Skeptics say the original magic may have been more theatrical than universal. Supporters say replication will reveal the true value. So you are left with a choice. Do you mourn a hidden miracle lost to secrecy? Or do you trust the slow, careful path of open testing? Tests continued long after the blowtorch demos. Laboratories ran controlled burns and measured insulation performance. Some results matched the original displays and surprised materials scientists. Small panels with the coating resisted heat and did not lose mass the way ordinary ablative shields do. That hinted at real chemistry behind the theater. Then, a company acquired the rights in 2013 and said it was working to reproduce and scale the material. Industry watchers cheered and then waited. Scaling a lab recipe to a factory process is hard. You need consistent inputs, quality control, and safety data. You need fire codes to accept a new material before builders will use it. You need crash tests and aerospace certifications if you want it on a spacecraft. Those are not quick or cheap boxes to tick. There is a second truth. The inventor refused to hand the recipe to anyone. He feared theft and misuse. That made sense for a creator who had seen his work tested and feared it would be copied and sold without care. But secrecy also meant the material did not enter peer-reviewed studies, and independent labs could not fully verify it. Science moves forward when people can reproduce results and improve on them. The balance between protecting a discovery and opening it to scrutiny is delicate and consequential. If the chemistry was as powerful as the demos suggested, then wider access could have accelerated life-saving uses. If the chemistry was more limited, then openness would have exposed that quickly and redirected resources. Either way, the case became a lesson about trust in innovation. A locked door can preserve a miracle, or it can hide a ghost. Which feels worse to you? That a true solution stayed secret, or that a dramatic result turned out to be a performance that could not be repeated at scale? General Motors EV1. Lessees slipped into a quiet car and felt the future. The vehicle moved without engine roar. It accelerated smoothly and felt lighter than any sedan most drivers had known. The program began as an answer to a state rule that pushed for zero-emission vehicles. Engineers built a sleek body and focused on range and efficiency. The early models could travel roughly 70 to 100 miles on a charge. That range was perfect for short commutes and city driving. GM did something unusual. Instead of selling the cars, it leased them. Drivers loved the instant torque and the uncluttered cabin. A small community formed around the cars. Owners traded tips about charging and maintenance. For a moment, the EV seemed like a practical choice for urban life. But the project faced blunt realities. Battery cost and supply limitations made each unit expensive to produce. Charging infrastructure was sparse, and public stations were rare. Many potential buyers worried about range anxiety and wondered how the car would perform on longer trips. Business people also tallied the numbers. Electric cars promise fewer service visits and fewer parts to sell. That reduces long-term dealer revenue. Established companies measured that threat in their financial models. Politicians and regulators debated incentives and mandates. The car owned a place in the public imagination, but struggled to fit into existing markets and business plans. Then, public opinion turned into questions. Critics asked whether a small niche vehicle could ever become a mass product. Supporters argued it was the only sensible path toward cleaner transport. The tension between what engineers could build and what the market would accept was real. People who drove the car felt an emotional loss when they imagined it gone. That emotional stake was part of why the story would not end quietly. Then, the company took back the cars. Leases were not renewed, and many vehicles were collected and then destroyed. Owners who fought to save their cars watched them hauled away and crushed. The sight of those cars in scrap lots became the image everyone remembers and the fuel for anger. The company said the program was not financially viable and that maintenance and liability for a small niche fleet were unsustainable. Critics pointed to industry ties and regulatory concessions and argued the decision looked like protection of the old business model. A documentary a few years later made the story a cultural touchstone. It stitched together owner testimony, industry memos, and policy twists, and asked a blunt question: who killed the electric car? The film did not settle the debate. Instead, it amplified it. Some evidence shows oil and dealer networks opposed sweeping change. Some evidence shows the cars were expensive to make, and the market was not ready. Both matters are true at once. The lasting effect is complicated. The program did not die without consequence. Engineers who worked on it moved to other projects. The concept and lessons seeded later work on batteries, charging standards, and public incentives. New companies studied the mistakes, and the regulators learned which policies would help. Years later, electric vehicles returned stronger and more practical with better batteries, more stations, and clearer business models. So what do you remember most? The crushed cars as proof of a conspiracy, or the program as a costly but useful experiment that taught the industry how to build a future? Dyson electric car. The prototype sits in a glass-walled workshop like a silent promise. Engineers move slowly around a polished body. The founder walked through the bay with papers in hand and said he would build a different kind of electric car. The team swelled to about 500 people, and the company spent vast sums to design a premium vehicle and to build a factory plan. At heart, the idea was simple and hard at once. Use new batteries, clever packaging, and obsessive engineering to make a car that felt like a Dyson product. Designers made a neat cabin and a tight powertrain. The company even planned a manufacturing site overseas to reach big markets quickly. Observers praised the design, and the prototype looked competitive in range and comfort. Then the numbers arrived. The cost to certify safety to industry standards, to build factories, and to secure a global supply chain proved enormous. Competition from established automakers and from ambitious startups pushed economics in one direction. The project needed scale to lower per-unit cost. Without a partner or a buyer, the company faced years of spending before any profit. In 2019, the company announced it would stop. The official reason was commercial viability. Behind that short sentence were regulatory hurdles, supply complexity, and a brutal price reality. Engineers kept some lessons, and the company pivoted into battery research instead. So ask yourself this: was the cancellation a prudent decision to stop a losing bet? Or was it a lost chance where money alone could have changed the game? After the project stopped, the engineers did not simply walk away. They repurposed tools learned in the prototype into new programs. Battery work continued. Materials testing and cooling designs moved into more fundamental research. The company kept intellectual property and staff and shifted focus to where the numbers made more sense. There are plain, boring reasons for that decision. Safety certification for mass markets is slow and expensive. Meeting global crash and electrical standards takes long trials and many iterations. Building a factory is a huge bet. A single large plant needs tens, if not hundreds of thousands of units a year to make economics work. Sourcing parts at scale is a different business than making a few prototypes in a lab. Competition mattered too. Other firms were already pouring massive sums into the same market and had distribution networks and dealer channels. Competing with them without deep pockets or a partner is risky. Regulators and customers expect proven service networks and long warranties. Those expectations shape whether a radical design can be sold sensibly. There is also a strategic truth. The company decided it could add more long-term value by pushing battery improvements than by trying to become a car maker overnight. That pivot aimed to sell expertise rather than a high-risk product. Some see that as prudent engineering. Others see it as retreat. So what do you weigh? The anger at a canceled dream, or the quiet work that made better batteries possible for everyone? Which would you rather have had, a bold but risky car, or quieter progress that helped many future vehicles? Air power. A sleek mat was teased on stage with neat diagrams and a promise that sounded like magic. The idea was simple and irresistible. Place a phone watch and earbuds anywhere on the surface and they all charge. Engineers planned dozens of tiny coils, so placement would not matter. That arrangement solved a real annoyance about wireless charging. But the coils crowded together, and the design created a hard engineering puzzle. Heat became the first visible problem. When multiple coils activate, they can generate overlapping fields that heat the electronics. Tests showed uneven hotspots and cases that warped under prolonged charging. Managing heat across a dense grid turned into a thermal balancing act. The company tried different coil layouts and complex power management tricks. Each fix introduced new interactions and new failure modes. Electromagnetic interference added a second layer of trouble. Signals that the devices used to negotiate charging began to fight with each other when many coils ran at once. The mat could not reliably identify which device needed how much power. That made safe charging unpredictable. Safety and reliability are not optional for a product used on a bedside table. Then came a public timeline problem. The product was announced long before the engineering was solved. Hype and expectation built around neat promotional images and a vague release window. When tests continued to reveal hard limits, the company faced a choice: ship something imperfect and risk damage to devices and reputation, or cancel and protect the brand. In March 2019, the decision landed. The company said it could not meet its high standards and stopped work. That one line hid months of stubborn testing and engineering trade-offs. Some users felt cheated, and some engineers felt relief at avoiding a risky launch. The lesson is stark. Not every elegant idea survives real-world physics and mass production. Which side do you take? Do you blame secrecy and corporate caution, or do you admire a company that refuses to release a product that might fail in your home? After months of testing, the public announcement came, and it was final. The company said the product would not meet its standards, and the program stopped. Engineers had exhausted coil layouts, cooling schemes, and power management tricks. Every change fixed one issue and revealed another. The tests that looked promising in a lab did not survive the messy real world. The cancellation did more than end a product. It spared customers the risk of a device that might overheat or damage other gadgets. It spared a brand the slow burn of refunds and safety scares. It also ended a tidy promise that had lived too long on stage and renderings. The trade-off was raw. Hype built expectation. Engineering found limits. Some people felt cheated. They wanted the convenience, and cooling issues felt fixable. Others felt relieved that a company refused to ship a risky product to shoppers. Engineers inside the program later talked about lessons learned in thermal management, coil spacing, and device negotiation. Those lessons do not vanish with a canceled product. They shape chargers and standards, and the next generation of playlists in engineering notebooks. There is another truth: announcing early is its own pressure. When marketing sets a date, the engineering team feels a hard clock. That can force compromises that hurt quality. The company chose a different risk. It chose not to let schedule outrun safe operation. So what do you take away? Do you blame overhyping and corporate secrecy? Or do you respect a team that stopped before a dangerous product reached your bedside? Courier. You flip open a slim device, and two bright screens face you like paper. The left side is a notebook. The right side is a canvas. Pens glide and handwritten notes stick to pages. It feels like the real thing without ink or clutter. Designers showed prototypes that let you drag photos, stitch pages, and fold ideas as if you were working in a pocket-sized studio. The team behind it built clever software for ink recognition and fast gestures. Engineers made demo videos of artists sketching and students marking pages during lectures. The device ran on an experimental operating system that treated the screens as one continuous surface, rather than two separate apps. That difference was powerful and also dangerous for a company that sold operating systems and business tools. Inside the firm, opinions split. Some leaders loved the experiment and hoped it would open a new product line. Others worried it would fragment the software ecosystem. Email and productivity tools had to fit. Executives asked how this device would work with existing servers and enterprise clients. The project lived in a studio with freedom to explore, but it also hit the limits of corporate strategy. When the choice came, the company chose integration over a separate product line. The custom system and bold design were shelved, and the work folded into other teams. Elements of the idea later surfaced in dual-screen devices and inking features. The creative spark did not vanish entirely, but the neat, polished product never reached your hands. Which story matters more to you? A brilliant gadget that never arrived, or an experiment that quietly shaped the tools you use today? The team did not disappear after the project ended. Engineers took code libraries, handwriting tools, and interaction tricks into other groups. Those pieces quietly found new homes inside mainstream products and in research labs. The ink recognition work improved note-taking features. The dual-screen gestures reappeared in other foldable devices. The polished demos influenced a generation of designers who wanted software to feel more like paper and less like a window. This outcome shows how big companies make choices that reshape technology quietly. A single decision about product fit or enterprise alignment can send talent and ideas into different directions. Sometimes that means a bold gadget never reaches consumers. Sometimes it means the idea survives in a dozen small improvements that show up in your next device. There is a human side too. The prototype team felt both pride and frustration. They had built something tactile, thoughtful, and beautiful. They also had to accept that a company with a massive software ecosystem could not easily support a device that rolled its own operating rules. The conflict was not about engineers versus executives. It was about scale and responsibility. One path risks fragmentation and support headaches. The other path slows down radical form factors, but keeps a platform consistent for millions of users. Looking back, you can see the ripples. Dual screens and pen input are now familiar features. Designers borrow freely from that old experiment when they think about paper-like interactions. The canceled product became a quiet seed for later work. So where do you stand? Do you mourn a clean, daring device that never arrived? Or do you value the slow, steady improvements that reached many people? Glasstron. You slide a lightweight visor over your eyes, and suddenly the movie theater sits in front of you like a private window. Early ads promised portable screens and hands-free viewing. The basic tech was simple. Tiny displays project an image close to each eye, and optics make it feel like a larger screen at a distance. That solves one problem. It creates several others. First, the hardware. Early headsets were heavy and awkward. Long sessions gave neck strain, and most users felt self-conscious wearing a display in public. Then there was battery life. Bright, tiny displays need constant power, and adding larger batteries makes the device heavier. The trade-off between brightness and comfort is brutal for a consumer gadget. Second, the social side. A built-in camera on a pair of glasses raises privacy questions instantly. People worry about being recorded in elevators, cafes, and meetings. Social acceptance matters for consumer wearables more than technical novelty. Without social comfort, you do not get repeat usage. Third, the content and ecosystem. A lonely display needs software and reasons to use it regularly. Without compelling apps, movies, and games alone do not justify daily wear. Early Sony experiments showed promise, but lacked a broad content plan and an affordable price point. Sony later tried again in different forms, and then moved resources into virtual reality headsets and gaming. Some lessons survived. Designers learned about weight distribution optics and how users actually wear devices. So what do you think? Would you wear a private theater on your face if it were comfortable and cheap? The failures taught engineers a long list of practical lessons that matter more than a single product. Weight and balance are not styling details. They decide whether you will wear something for 5 minutes or 5 hours. Battery design shapes how bright a screen can be and how long it stays useful. Cameras and microphones force designers to think about privacy before a product ships. Those are basic truths that no demo can change. Sony moved on and learned. Some teams focused on virtual reality for gaming, where a closed ecosystem can support heavy hardware. Others kept tinkering with optics and low-power displays for niche professional tools. The company did not abandon the idea of wearable screens. It adapted the work to places where the trade-offs made sense and where users accepted the form factor. There is a wider industry lesson too. New hardware needs 3 things to stick. Compelling content comes first. A great headset with no games or apps will sit on shelves. Comfortable design comes second. No one wants neck pain for a private movie. Social acceptance comes third. If a device makes strangers uneasy, you lose everyday use. Those 3 boxes are why some bold ideas vanish and others return years later. Technology can be ready before culture catches up, or culture can be eager, while the batteries and materials lag behind. Either way, the market decides. So when you hear about the next pair of smart glasses or a new headset, think about the hidden checklist behind the glamour. Is there a library of apps? Is the device comfortable for long use? Will other people accept it in public spaces? Which matter most to you? A tiny private theater that changes how you watch, or a careful slow roll that reshapes public norms and privacy rules? Morph. You hold a phone, and it bends like warm rubber, then flattens into a long strip that slips around your wrist like a bracelet. The surface is clear and smooth, water beads up and rolls off. Textures shift under your thumb to give feedback as if the screen can feel. The demo videos showed sensors reading air quality and tiny solar cells trickling charge when you stood by a window. It looked like a small miracle of materials and design. Behind the miracle is a stack of hard problems. The thin, flexible electronics need tiny wires that do not break when you bend them many times. Transparent conductors must be both strong and cheap to make. Nano coatings that shed dirt often require precise lab conditions that are hard to reproduce on an assembly line. The pieces existed in research papers and chic demos, but not in factories that can stamp out millions of identical units at reasonable cost. Manufacturing is where dreams meet bills. Processes that work one time in a lab cost too much at scale. Quality control must catch tiny defects, and that takes equipment and time. A flexible device means new repair models and new testing regimes. Companies had to ask who would pay for that complexity and whether customers were ready to accept fragile miracles. Then there is timing. Consumers buy features when software and apps ask for them. Without a clear ecosystem, the gadget stays a prototype museum piece. The concept did not vanish wasted. It seeded research into flexible displays, into better coatings, and into lightweight sensors. Those ripples show up in later products quietly. So, which thought bothers you more? That a real breakthrough waited for better factories, or that the market was not yet ready for a phone that could change shape? The device did not disappear for lack of ideas. It stalled because building 1,000,000 flexible screens is not the same as bending one in a lab. Tiny cracks that do not show on a first bend become failure points after many cycles. Coatings that repel water in a controlled test often fail under dust heat and repeated touch. Factories need repeatable steps and suppliers that can meet strict tolerances day after day. That raises costs sharply. Cost is the blunt answer. Advanced materials and custom processes raise the price far above what most buyers will pay. When research teams show a beauty of a device, they do not always show the bill for a factory run. Companies must answer who will underwrite the risk and how they will support repairs and returns. Without that plan, a concept is a museum piece, not a market hit. Timing matters too. Consumers adopt new form factors when apps and services need them. Developers build for platforms that reach millions. Without a software pull, the nicest hardware is just a novelty. Often, the market waits for batteries, displays, and networks to improve enough to make the new shape useful every day. The final truth is quieter. The work seeded better, bendable displays, lighter sensors, and new coatings. Those pieces entered other products where the trade-offs made sense. The dream changed the path even if it did not reach your pocket. So, which feels worse to you? That a real breakthrough waited for factories and time? Or that the market was not ready and the idea had to wait?